the same thing that the Ghana card is supposed to do. I would prefer to call it the Ghana ID because it's an ID, first and foremost. So the name, if it stays for what it is, it helps. When you say Ghana card, it literally would mean any other card. But when you say Ghana ID card or Ghana ID, well, it's self-explanatory from the get-go. Now, the Ghana ID primarily is to be able to authenticate as to identify terms of transacting official businesses. Cards card, driver's license, the electoral commission card, national health insurance, etc., etc. All these cards all do the same thing. The supposed reason, and here I'm using the word supposed reason because I will address that, is that over the period you recognize that we've been advocating as a country, CSOs, etc., etc., about the fact we need to have just a card full of business. Primarily because if you take DVLA, Social Security, Electoral Commission, the Passport Office, and other, what is that? It's cards, they all independent on their own. Therefore, there's no other means of sharing of information to a point where if Senate uses this business at the bank or any other institution like the National Health or Ghana Health Service, or maybe Kolebu, if you want to put it that way. So this time around, based on the infrastructure laid down, here I am emphasizing on the infrastructure laid down, because you cannot go on with digitization when you don't have the laid down structures, when you don't have the cables laid down. For example, in 2014, President Mahama, right, constructed over, I think, 80 kilometers worth of fiber optic, which spans from the eastern corridor all the way to the north. All these type of infrastructure was to be able to lay the foundation for what we have today. Therefore, in assessing the Ghana ID itself, you would say that everything that this card is supposed to do, we already have cards that are doing them. Just that this time around, it's supposed to optimize them. So there's no difference. The Ghana ID is not doing anything special. And let me break it down, Senna, even to some certain point. If you use your passport, right, to transact certain business, maybe if you want to travel, your face will be authenticated to make sure that it is your face. You can use your same passport to go to the bank. However, the structures that will be at the bank there will not be able to authenticate you as the main person. It's like I can take your face, put my face there, and I'm Senna. And that's about it. I have your date of birth and everything. How would you be able to tell that the face that I have placed in this particular book or this card, it's the same thing that it's in the main database? That is what makes the difference. And the Ghana ID seem not to address that. The Ghana ID seem not to address that. So it's just the normal cards that we've had over the period that we've used for authentication. So there's no need for...
I've gone through that registration process. They take your biometrics. They take pictures of your face. I don't know exactly what they're doing. But it seems the attempt is to create a unique identification for all of us, that when you go through the system, they can tell it is you.
So now, let me ask you a question. Have you been to a bank where they've used your thumbprint as the basis to authenticate you?
Oh, no, they just take the card, look at it, and that's all.
Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. And it brings me to the next level. That's what makes a card unique, or the purpose of which you want to hear Bawumia talk more, has to do with the fact that you want to talk more about security. That this card is so secure to a point that it cannot be duplicated. That no other person can use this card to, conduct any fraudulent activity and it will be on your head. That is what's supposed to be the difference. But Bawumia is not addressing the purpose of which ID cards are needed, primarily for security purposes. A typical example, We have neighboring countries, people using Ghana passports and IDs to transact all sort of businesses. True or false? We are unable to tell if this person is even a Ghanaian or not in some instances. Therefore, if you want to convince us that the Ghana ID is so special, we want to hear that these cards that will be issued or it's being issued to us is so secured to a point that irrespective of whoever has it or whatever transaction that you conduct, it is truly going to be you and it cannot be compromised at any form. But Bawumia is not discussing that. Therefore, just the ordinary sound of Ghana card, it is business as usual. It's just like the ordinary cards that we've had. The only good thing that this thing is supposed to do is the fact that it's supposed to save us more money as a country. Because in the past, you have DVLA spending millions of dollars printing their own cards. National ID will do the same thing, etc., etc. This time, one institution is supposed to do it, and that's about it. Beyond that, there's nothing unique about this Ghana ID. That's the vice president wants us to believe that it is something special.
But Arnold, you live in the US. Is there a unique identification card that they use?
Is there a what?
What we are trying to do here is there that form in the US where you have one ID card for everything?
Yes, we have one ID card for everything. But what I am saying here is that the Ghana ID card is not different from the previous cards that we've had. And therefore, the noise that Bawumia is making, it is so irrelevant. We don't need the noise. It is something that has been in existence. And this time around, it's just we using one card to use for all transactions. That's all. Why the noise? What is so special? Why the noise? And Senna, let me say something significant here. And I want to hear you to hear me out. And it opens up for us to begin to question if this Ghana card thing that Bawumia is saying that over 16 million has been issued out, it's serving the right purpose. Electoral Commission, I believe that you've heard that he sent a proposal out there for an $80 million funds to be able to do what? To carry out registration. True or false?
Well, they've denied that they are spending 80 million. They've denied that. They've denied compiling a new register, plans to compile a new register. They've not denied whether there's an 80 million expenditure in the looming or something.
So they've denied completely that we are not going to have registration and nothing of that sort. That's what they are saying.
No, they've denied that people who are currently on the register that was compiled in 2020 will be required to register again.
Okay. Now, let's make this analogy, Senna, so that we can keep it on record. Bawumia says that 16 million Ghanaians already have the Ghana card. Therefore, there's no way that they would have to do what? Go to the Electoral Commission and go and carry out a new registration for what? A card. Because all the details, all the credentials that are needed, they are already stored in there. So we don't need it at all in any capacity. Now, when we get into the election process and the Electoral Commission comes out with its proposal, what some of us would be expecting is for the Electoral Commission to say that, hey, we are only doing limited registration for persons who have turned 18, for those who have lost their cards to go and get replacement, or others to go and get themselves verified. That is what some of us would expect, because according to Bawumia, 16 million people already have the cards. Maybe 10 million of them would be of 18 and above, and for that matter would have the capacity to vote. So for us, we are keeping track of some of these things to be able to tell if indeed the Ghana card at 16 million has been provided to people, it's really effective, it is authentic, and EC will not require further credentials of anybody in terms of getting registered all over again to be able to get the voters register or for the name to be on the EC's database. That is one thing I would want all of us to keep an eye on, because as of now, per what Bawumia said and what they claim they've denied, it contradicts completely. It contradicts completely. If you have 16 million people, there's no need for an 80 million budget. If you have 16 million, there's no need for re-registration. All you do is that you extend the limited registration. Those who have turned 18 to go and register, those who have lost their cards to go and get a new one, and that should be about it. So the Electoral Commission should not come out with any other form of registration based on what Bawumia has said. The 60 million is already in the system.
Before you go, just one question. In the US where you live, because US, you also had issues with what he said. You have a national, a unique ID. And do you have interchanges at the same time?
No. So we have just one ID. That is.
You have one ID.
Yes.
Is it a choice between an ID and interchange or interchange?
Senna, once again, Dr. Bawumia is supposed to be an economist. And as an economist, you deal with statistics, you deal with data, you deal with fact, right? To be able to arrive at certain results. Now, what Bawumia sought to do was to downplay the massive infrastructure that the past administration did, i.e. President Mahama, of which everyone knows that when it comes to infrastructure, it is President Mahama who has, placed Ghana on that map. Now, what's the purpose of the infrastructure? The primary purpose of having an infrastructure is to expand the economy. It's to provide that relief system for people to go about their business in peace. You talk of national ID. What is the relevance of a national ID when people cannot commute, when people do not have the infrastructure to do their businesses? What's the purpose of it? Now, you want to ask Bawumia that would Bawumia choose the drone that he purchased over $50 million to transport blood from one location to the other over an ID? Because the last time I checked, the purpose of which those drones were purchased to transport blood via the air was because of terrible road infrastructure. True or false? Therefore, going through the air will be much faster. So to save lives against the national ID, which one is most important? See how he contradicts himself? But the point is, these are basics. And if Bawumia wants to be a systems administrator, he should go to an IT school and learn the basics. But these things, you don't discuss them. It's too trivial. It's too basic. It's not for vice presidents. These things are for up and coming IT guys who are doing something and they want others to see on social media. But for a whole vice president to talk about basics, issuing of cards, it's just waste of time. It's either he doesn't understand the magnitude of how he's reducing the standard, or maybe something else.
Arnold, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Senna.
Mr. Arnold Appiah is President, NDC Pro-Forum in the US. Join us this morning. Mufta Adamu, good morning.
Good morning, Senna.
How are you?
Fine, and yourself?
By the grace of God, I did.
As for Ghana, they will live by the grace of God.
Yes. God is our president.
God is our president.
God is our president. Anyway, we played on United. Okay, also on Friday. We won.
You don't worry.
We won something.
You are engaged in alligator race. What do you say in Chimampam America? When the league starts, you will see your smoothness level.
The players that some of these people have gone to buy. The players that some of these people that we are going to meet have gone to buy. Hey, Charlie. Chelsea too is buying some. Arsenal has bought some. Man City, very good quality. Liverpool, good
one
quality.
One or two here and there
yes.
quality. You will see your smoothness level.
Charlie,
This your rickety squad.
it will be easy.
It won't.
Let me say a good morning to Mr. Frank Goka and Mufta Adamu has paused. Proudly brought to you by Betway.
Chalet, you make ready to dive into the thrilling world of sports betting. Betway gives you access to thousands of fixtures from all of the world's biggest leagues and tournaments.